Yes, the mics are alive. Need a minute or so, Susan?
Yeah, I'm trying to send a link to her. I don't know if she has permissions, though. We'll have to
Okay,
see.
we'll hold for just a moment more.
Okay, thank you.
What do we have to do to turn our screens on?
I believe they're active. Mark?
Well, oh, no, sorry, it was his personal screen, his left.
Yes, he has his personal device. No, these screens aren't active right now.
No.
Can we turn them on?
I don't believe so. They haven't turned them on in the past. I
I've
suspect
often-
the gentleman in the back might be able to help with that.
What do you want to use it for? Because it's an iPad, it just does internet, doesn't do a lot.
Right, so I want to go to the city's website. I want to look something up in the city's website. And yes, I've done that many times before.
Okay, here comes the link, Crystal.
These kind of do that. They don't do a lot, but they can do that. They're not dead.
I'm not actually to do a geological analysis of this.
Well, you have to log in. You have a login, Susan?
Here we go.
I don't know if, see, I don't know. if
Yeah.
it's in there.
Okay.
Try S.
Norris?
It'll let us.
Good afternoon.
At the same time, C, yep, C again. R-O, and, yep, A-N-D-E-R. And then down there, password.
Do you want to just type it in?
Sure. All right. I had to remember what my original one was.
Apologies to the audience. We're having a small technical difficulty. It's important to have us all online before we start the meeting.
There we go.
So apologies.
Topographic.
It hasn't changed. There it goes. So do I need to log in here
Yeah.
back to the website or?
Find address or place?
Okay, that's fine.
Yes,
Thank you.
for the topo map. It's in here somewhere.
So it's like in your,
Yeah, try planning layer. No, that's just the key. Topograph, oh, there we go. That's world. Well, hit world. Try that. See if we can get it to do anything. Yeah.
I don't know if that does anything, because it's not really showing any topography, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure which, it's been so long since I've been to this one.
Nice warm day.
Kind of nice, though. It's not too hot. I think the last meeting that we had was real warm.
Scorcher. Scorcher. Yeah.
I hope they got these guys.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to bring up. They're trying to get the file up, I believe.
Try this.
You'd think somebody knows these people.
See, I just
You would think, right?
Pretty good shots.
Yeah.
So, click on. Oh, you don't have. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to get you to this from there. Go to home. Gallery. See if it's in there. No, let's see. Back to home. Boy, this is, okay, try gallery again, I'm sorry. I think I saw a list here. Layers. No, still nothing.
Technology, we become its slaves. It owns us completely.
How you try to get you to the plan. Yes. Well,
So the community foundation is handling this.
Yeah, we're working on
at least I think, okay, two
foundation. It's for the museum.
Down here on Michigan,
to the
that,
Museum's on Jackson.
parcels. we
oh,
just
they,
need.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
301.
so, yeah, the only thing is I need my computer too, but we'll figure it out.
Well, what connection is that?
Okay,
Okay. Oops.
good. What's the goal?
50.
Walk-ins. You typed a B in there. You tried.
Oh, got it.
There we go. So that's what,
That's good. Good.
here's some.
Everybody down here, you see this?
into her.
Everybody good?
Okay.
Oh, I'd have to be the.
Norris came in late. Send him down.
I'll send this one down.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I think we're ready, yeah?
That work?
I see the agenda.
It's pretty good.
Maybe a little, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
All right, I believe we're all in order now, Susan?
Yes, is this mine?
That was my extra copy. You can have it.
I had stuff right here.
You leave it over with her.
Is it with you?
It's over here on this table. Oh my gosh.
All right, then. So let's begin here. Okay, I'd like to call the Special Zoning Board of Appeals meeting here for Tuesday, August the 23rd, 2022. Crystal, if you will, please note the attendance.
All right. Board Member Delaware,
Here.
Board Member Hanner,
Here.
Board Member Lindsay,
Here.
Board Member Moreno,
Here.
and Board Member Jones.
Here.
Board Member Rogers will not be present today.
Correct, he's excused. All right, I don't believe there's any additions or deletions to our agenda that we need to be aware of. Is that correct? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sorry, we didn't catch this a lot sooner. Staff would like to request to remove the meeting minutes, to re-review them and make edits to them. They're verbatim for one thing, and we know that, action minutes are, what
Right,
we
they're not
really need to
verbatim.
do, et cetera.
Good.
So, yes, if we
All right.
may do that, we'd really appreciate it. And
right,
then
that
you
will
will
be-
have these plus the minutes from today at the September meeting.
Beautiful.
So when I've read a lot of other meeting minutes, every committee that I read, they have verbatim minimums. Is there a reason why we are the only board that does not have verbatim minutes?
Marcy said that we like to do action minutes.
So do we
The
have?
city clerk does action minutes, and I guess that's been a policy of the city. We still keep the recordings, though, don't we, Crystal?
I believe
We
so.
still have the,
Okay.
But why, when I pull up meeting minutes in the city's website, does every other committee do They don't do action minutes. I mean, I read probably a dozen or so, and they don't do action minutes. They do verbatim minutes.
Interesting.
So a question, Susan, also, Marcel, please chime in. Is it the city is moving towards the action minute format going forward? Is that what we're understanding here today, potentially?
Let me answer that. I'll answer that, Mr. Marino. The city has, well, since I've been here, worked on action minutes, so I don't know what committees are still doing verbatim minutes, but minutes are, by definition, not a transcript, so we should just be doing summary minutes.
Certainly. What,
If there are any committees that we need to clarify that with, we can certainly get them back on the right track, but all the bodies that I advise, we do not do transcripts.
thank you. All right then, so let's get to the administrative piece before we open this public hearing. What's going to happen here today is I will be asking staff to give a report. That's after I open the public hearing here. And in that process, once they're completed, then we will ask the applicant to come to the microphone, give your name, your address for the record, and then you can provide any additional information that's not already been provided in the staff report. After which, if there's questions from the board here, they will ask you once they're recognized by the chair, and then we'll proceed to the next phase, which is to ask if there's anybody in the audience that's here to speak for or against this particular item on the agenda today. Once we've exhausted that conversation and there are no further comments, then we'll move it to close the public hearing, and then we'll have our board discussion, at which time we will internally discuss, and that discussion can and will include information that we may ask staff to provide as well. So that's pretty much how it's going to happen today. So let's move forward. I'd like to declare this public hearing open for Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022, for a dimensional variance request 0322. But please, staff report.
Thank you. So the applicant of Paragon Growers at 1008 Watkins Road, Battle Creek, Michigan, is requesting a variance to build an 8-foot tall, less than 50% opaque, galvanized metal fence where normally 6 feet is allowed in front yards for security purposes surrounding their proposed adult-use marijuana grow facility along the lot lines of the subject 3 front yards as defined by the City of Battle Creek zoning ordinance. The applicant is also requesting an additional variance to allow a portion of the 50% transparent or less than 50% opaque galvanized metal fence in the clear vision triangle section at the intersection of Renton and Watkins Roads, where normally the clear vision triangular area with 25-foot sides must be free from visual obstruction. The subject property is zoned I2 heavy industrial, and staff is recommending approval for the proposed 8-foot fence along 2 of the 3 fronts, as would normally be allowed on properties in the I2 heavy industrial district. Staff is not recommending approval for fencing in the clear vision triangle. And to summarize a little further, the property, the hardships is that the property at 1008 Watkins Road borders 3 streets, and therefore the city's zoning ordinance considers this property to have 3 front yards. The 3 streets are Watkins Road, Renton Road, and I-94. And yes, the definition of street in our zoning ordinance does include a highway and freeway. And the definition of yard is an area between the lot line to the first supporting member of the main building. So if you take a look at figure 6 on page 4, you can see where the 3 streets go, that line from the street up to the building, that's all front yards. So that is the hardship for this variance. I-94 and Renton Road do not intersect, and therefore, staff is only considering the intersection of Watkins and Renton Road and not 94 and Renton Road because they don't intersect on the same plane. I-94 goes, or Renton Road goes over, bridges over I-94. So there really isn't an issue with a clear vision triangle there and anybody trying to turn anywhere. The applicant is claiming that because 1008 Watkins Road is remote and surrounded by roads, that this increases the site's security risk. Also, that other property owners in the industrial district have the right to install an 8-foot-high fence in at least the side and rear yards of their properties. Additionally, the applicant claims that this property has already been broken into, and I believe that they attached some sample pictures. Some of them were samples from other properties, and the applicant can speak to this in more detail. And some, I believe, were from his. In addition, the existing building will be housing marijuana product and hazardous waste material from the product. If Paragon Growers' full variance request for an 8-foot-high fence in all 3 yards cannot be granted, the applicant is choosing the Renton Road property line as their front property line. This may seem a little odd, but when I looked at the definitions in the zoning ordinance, the rear yard on a corner property, which this is still, even though it's surrounded by 3 streets, it's still considered it's defined as a corner property. Corner includes more than 2 streets. So the rear yard can be considered as parallel to the street upon which the lot has its least dimension. So the least dimension is along Renton Road. So the zoning ordinance does support the applicant's choice of Renton Road if they can only have the fence along in 2 of their yards and not a 3rd one. For the second variance request, please see Figure 8 for a visual of what the clear vision triangle is. Clear vision triangle basically even, or if you're into geometry, an isosceles triangle that has 25 feet along each of the streets and then connected across the base. The reason, of course, for a clear vision triangle is to prevent visual obstruction. In this case, possibly due to the topography, a fence in the clear vision corner would or may not be a visual obstruction. And this is something that staff thought about quite a bit. But that is not ultimately a hardship reason or compelling reason for a variance in the clear vision triangle. There has to be a compelling reason to grant a variance like that, or a hardship. Also, because of the nature and purpose of right-of-ways, staff also cannot assuredly state that the reserved right-of-way property will never be used, even though it might seem to us like it's not, or altered at some point in the future. So it may become important sometime down the road. The point is that it is a right-of-way, and this is in the zoning ordinance. Finally, fencing within the triangular corner clearance area is not a property right for other properties anywhere in the city, not just industrial district. Findings and recommendations. The fence height variance request. We have found that there is a practical difficulty for the applicant because they have the 3 front yards. Based on the letter attached to their application and their description for security, as well as potential other safety concerns, we have found that there is a practical difficulty. We did not find that for the clear vision triangle area. The second issue, the practical difficulty must be exceptional and peculiar to the subject parcel of the land, which do not generally exist throughout the city. Definitely for the fence height variance request, we do find that the difficulty is not self-imposed, but peculiar and exceptional to the 1008 Watkins property with 3 front yards. Normally, in an industrial zoning district, a taller than 6-foot-high fence, I believe it's up to 10 feet generally, can be built in all but one of the yards. The front yard still is 6 feet for everybody else. Additionally, even if the fence was relocated from the property line to the interior of the front yard, the fence would still be located in a front yard. So it doesn't matter where he tries to put it, even if he puts it closer to the building, the zoning ordinance still describes it as a front yard. Fence location in the clear vision triangle area. Again, we didn't find that there was a practical difficulty to put the fence here. A variance shall not be granted when it will alter or conflict with the intent of this ordinance, considering the public benefits intended to be secured by the zoning code and the rights of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of this variance. Again, for the fence height, other industrially zoned properties have a right to a 10-foot tall fence in their side and rear yards and have a limit of 6 feet tall in one of their yards, usually their front yard. Therefore, granting a variance for an 8-foot-high fence in 2 of the yards on this property would be consistent with the property rights of other property owners. Fence location in the clear vision triangle area. Staff finds that locating the fence within the clear vision triangle area would allow a right not granted to other properties in the city, and again, is not necessary. And finally, number 4, any variance granted shall be the minimum necessary to provide relief for the practical difficulty of the applicant. Again, for the fence height, granting a variance for a fence 2 feet taller than the 6-foot fence that is currently allowed on his 3 front yard property, and granting it for 2 and not 3 of the front yards is normally the minimum of what a property in the industrial zone would be allowed. Fence location in the clear vision triangle area, as stated in 1, 2, and 3 above, a practical difficulty for locating the fence in the clear vision triangle area was not identified. Granting a variance for an 8-foot tall fence in 2 of the 3 front yards, a right normally allowed on an industrially zoned property, would be the minimum necessary to provide relief. Recommendations. So staff is recommending that the Zoning Board of Appeals deny the applicant's request for a fence in the corner clearance area. 2, staff finds that the applicant's alternate variance request to allow an 8-foot fence in the 2 front yards along I-94 and Watkins Road, as requested by the applicant, meets all criteria under the variance standards. Therefore, we recommend approval of the alternate dimensional variance request for the 2 front yards, allowing him to claim Renton Road as his only front yard. For an 8-foot-high fence in the 2 front yards of I-94 and Watkins Road based on the findings contained in the staff report with the following conditions: that the fence consist of 50% or less opacity as proposed by the applicant, that the fence not be cattle fencing or any type of fencing that is prohibited by the city's zoning ordinance, that the only front yard that will require the proposed fence to have a 6-foot height limit be the front yard created along the frontage along Renton Road, as requested by the applicant in the alternate variance request for the fence height, that no part of the fence be located within the clear vision triangle area, and that when the applicant resubmits the formally approved site plan for reapproval, because they do have one, it's just expired, but that's a separate issue, that the applicant illustrate the boundaries and height of any fencing granted for this petition, if it is, clearly on their site plan. Thank you.
Thank you for the staff report. All right then, if the applicant will come forward, your name and your address, please, sir.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone. Lubomir Drachev, 1008 Watkins Road.
So if you have anything additional to present that hasn't already been presented in the application, please.
No, actually, she covered most of it. I just want to say that I did start this project last September, and so far I have 2 burglaries. I know 2 feet may not help that much, but to me it will be safer to have an 8-foot fence than 6 feet at this property. I did invest so far a chunk of money into this property and building a grow operation, so it will be safer for the employees as well, not just for the cost of the stuff that can be stored in it. And I had a surveyor actually over there today in the property, and I know the concern is mostly the borderline that runs parallel to the Renton Road, but actually over there the fence will be hardly noticeable because he's telling me it's like the level of the property, it's like 25 feet below the level of Renton Road. And actually to see the fence over there, you have to walk on the Renton Road and look down to see my fence. The corner of concern that is on Renton Road and Watkins, right by the electrical pole, that where actually my borderlines go, it's under the level of the crossing as well, probably around 10 feet. So the concern of visibility of the vehicles, it's minimal as well over there. So I have nothing else to add.
All right, sir. Thank you. At this time, do board members have a question for the applicant? Okay, no board members have any questions for the applicant then? All right then. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next piece here is there anybody here in the audience to speak for or against this particular dimensional variance request? Anybody here in the audience to speak for or against this request? All right then, we see none, hear none. Then what I will do is I will close this public hearing at this point, and we will now come to the board for our internal discussion. Do any of the board members have a particular question that we need to address internally with staff or just amongst ourselves?
I have questions for the staff. So what is the elevation at the base of that telephone pole or anything nearby it?
At the corner of Renton and
Yeah,
Watkins.
there's a telephone pole there. What is the
Yeah.
elevation at the base of the telephone pole?
Okay, let me see.
Or, well, that's a lead-up question. What I'm really looking at, from the base of the telephone pole to the ground level at that point, or what is that elevation change?
So, yeah, the telephone pole, it's 964, up to just about the road right there, it's 972, so you're looking at 8 feet.
Okay, so it's an 8-foot. And then does the corner clear vision area include any of those trees?
Well, I don't have exact dimensions along there. I did measure it out on figure 8 in your packet there.
Okay. Okay.
And I know it's kind of hard to see on a paper, but it looks to me like it is just about where the telephone pole is and would go across right in that corner.
Okay.
Let me see. I was looking to see if there were-
Okay, I can see the triangle. If that, those 3 dots represent the clear vision area,
Roughly, right, the blue, yeah, it's roughly right.
and then that extends to both roads, I'm going to assume.
Yes, it's 25 feet along Watkins, the boundary, the property line, and 25 feet along Renton Road, where the
Okay.
property line is, and then connected.
Right.
The base is
So-
connected by those two 25-foot legs.
And are telephone poles exempt from clear vision areas?
We don't, we don't address that in our ordinance. That's, I mean, if they had to come to us for approval, we would say no.
Okay.
So they would not be exempt. However, because it's a separate utility, we don't necessarily
So we don't,
know of have control over it.
so we, the utility is exempt from the laws of Battle Creek.
You know, I would have to really look into that,
Okay,
board member. I'm not entirely sure,
okay.
but, so.
I really have no other questions, so.
Are any other board members have any other questions? All right, then. Chair would entertain a motion for Z0322 zoning dimensional variance request.
I would move that we grant the request, the first request, including the vision area for a 10-foot fence, the entire perimeter.
Is there support?
It says 8 foot on
Oh, sorry, an 8-foot, yes, an 8-foot pen.
Do I hear support?
there. Support.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hannan. All right, then, is there any discussion? One item here, really quickly. Staff has done their due diligence, I do believe, and it's unfortunate that you have a property that has 3 front yards, but at least the ordinance does make accommodation for the fact of the practical difficulties that do exist. But the clear triangle area clearly is not within our purview where we can actually change that, because that is there for safety. And above all, we have to maintain the safety margins to prevent potential future issues. And also the fact that there is a right-of-way issue in there. So with that being said, I can't support having, the fence any higher than the 6 foot that's allowable based on our ordinance. So I won't be supporting this in favor. Mr. Jones, you have a
I
statement?
do, but I'm willing to talk last, talk first, whenever. Do you guys want me to talk next or somebody else?
If you have a question, please proceed.
I have statements and questions. So, to the entire point, so I will be voting yes. And to the point of Mr. Marino, a safety issue. Well, if the fence will extend 2 feet, wait a minute, no, it's not even 2 feet. The fence will be at the level of the ground level per the dimensions that she said. So the idea of an obstruction at the ground level causing a visible safety hazard is absurd. I'm sorry. If something's at the ground level, by definition, it's not a visible safety hazard. And if it was, we have clearly another visible safety hazard in the form of the telephone pole. If we're applying, you said we have to apply this equally across the city. So if we're doing this equally across the city, then we have to impose this upon the power pole and ask them to move the power pole about 5 feet. And obviously, we've not done this. This has not been a concern before. But, I mean, the power pole only has to move about 5 feet to get out of the clear zone. Yet, I doubt we're going to ask Consumers Power to do that. So we have another entity of Battle Creek that's getting a special provision, and yet we're unable to, which clearly is a visible hazard. It's much higher than, well, it's got to be at least 30 feet above there. So it's clearly a visible hazard in a visible hazard space, and yet his is not a visible hazard. By definition, it's at ground level. The highest point of his is at ground level. I don't see that it presents a visible hazard. In terms of it breaking, this is in the right-of-way, well, most fences in Battle Creek are in the right-of-way. If you extend 12 feet from the center of the road, I know my neighbor's fence would be in the right-of-way because her fence is not 12 feet from the middle of the street. Fences are not a permanent structure. They are a temporary structure. And temporary structures do not cause a hazard when it comes to setbacks, because they're easily removed, okay? So I do find, and also, I do find this to be a unique property. We had one property a couple of years ago where they had like a 10-foot change in elevation throughout their property. And we granted that because there was an extreme change of elevation in their property. And, I mean, I don't know how many 12-foot changes in elevation there are, but there can't be many. And per our previous actions, we granted an exemption because we found that that was a unique piece of property. The other problem that I have is, okay, so we've got a fence paralleling Renton Road. Do you want him to go 10 feet until he gets 5 feet from the road and then step down and, you know, only in that corner have a 6-foot fence? Does the rest of his property, I mean, does that entire length along Renton Road have to be 6 inches or 6 feet? Sorry.
Yes, that's that defined front yard, if you look at the
But that's because it's a front yard.
figure 6, yeah, so anything within that.
So if we stepped away from the clear vision area, is there anyone, if this wasn't a clear vision issue, is there anyone here that would not support a 8-foot fence along that front yard because, you know, clearly Renton Road is way above 8 feet? If we set that clear vision area aside, is there anyone who wouldn't vote for this in favor of granting him an exception? I surely wouldn't. I mean, because there's no reason other than to be picky-uni about, oh, you know, we're just going to force something upon you because we have the power to do that. I see no reason not to grant the exception. It's clearly a unique property. It's clearly within our purview of what we're doing here to grant that without the clear vision. Now, normally, I'm a stickler because in the past, we had another case that I argued for a fence to be dropped down because it was a clear vision issue. It represented a safety hazard. It does not represent a safety hazard in this issue. It's at ground level. I just cannot emphasize that enough, that it's absurd to think that this is a safety issue. So, I conclude.
Any other board members? Comments or questions?
Just want to reconfirm with the staff, does that align with, I mean, are we talking about the road level is going to be almost at the top of the fence?
Yes. Yes. And it was more that there wasn't a hardship than whether or not you could see the fence, honestly, because this is a variance situation. I thought a lot about it. It was a tough one.
Thank you. All right then.
Ready to vote?
Crystal, if you will, please.
Board Member Delaware?
I'm going to say yes. I don't see that we have a clear vision issue here. And I understand the staff's thinking on this, but I lean towards the applicant in this case because it's not going to be a safety hazard. And I think they've made a clear case that there is, it is an unusual property. So I'm going to agree with what Mark suggested on this.
All right. Board Member Hanner?
I'm going to vote yes on the 8-foot fence around the entire building. But I also agree, I've driven this intersection many times. I kind of think it's an unsafe area anyway. It's hard to see when you're coming Watkins and you're going to turn north on Watkins. You can hardly see anything coming over the bridge from Renton. I think it's a dangerous intersection in the first place. But the ground level is so much lower than the road, and from what I've heard. from the questioning is that the top of the fence is not going to be any hindrance to safety. It's going to be below the grade level of the road. So I'm going to vote yes on both.
Okay. Board Member Lindsay?
I'm going to vote yes. The applicant has stated that also the fence would aid in being safer for the employees and for everybody around, so I would vote yes.
Okay. Board Member Jones?
I'm going to vote yes for the reasons previously stated, and then one other one because it wasn't part of my questions. But, this is a marijuana facility, and they have problems with marijuana facilities throughout our city. And so that 2-foot difference, if he says that's what he needs to protect his property in a better way, I'm inclined to agree even more. So, yes.
All right, and Board Member Moreno?
I'm voting no, and it's not so much just a safety issue, it's the fact that there is no demonstrable practical difficulty, although there may be the argument made about the topography and the drop in that situation. It's still a front yard by definition of the ordinance, and by that definition, the hardship to support the dimensional variance request doesn't exist. So, no.
Okay. And that completes the roll vote.
Yes, thank you. All right, sir, your request has been granted for your requested fences. So you'll have to, of course, pull the necessary permitting. Your site plan has to be updated, of course, and work with planning as such and go forth. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, then, that brings us here to, we are bypassing the minutes as requested. Comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public? All right, comments from the members. Real quick note to staff, thank you. This was an interesting package. I appreciate the fact that we had this special meeting to get it done this month, so much appreciate the hard work done. So thank you. Any other member comments?
I do, okay, I made a very forceful argument, but I do appreciate the amount of work that you did to do this. It just, yeah, as I said, but I do appreciate your effort and your work, and I don't want anything I said to diminish the level of effort that you gave us.
Move the minutes?
We're holding those till September, Bill. All right, then, if there are no further member comments, we can move to adjournment. Thank you, everybody.